Hey, what's going on, everybody? Appreciate you tuning in for another edition of the On the Ball podcast. We're back for another week. This week is just going to be myself and Brett. Dylan can't make it this week, but he'll be back next week. But we got a lot to get into. I mean, before we do that, obviously got to check in with Brett. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Great weekend. My cousin got married. My Packers pulled it out against the Rams. Overall, can't complain much.
Exactly. I mean, first off, congrats to your cousin getting married. That's obviously a big deal. And then your Packers winning. That's definitely a good way to kind of cap off your weekend. I mean, I wish I could share in that sentiment with my Patriots, but we're not in the business of winning games necessarily. Although we will talk about them shortly here in a little bit. But obviously, those of you who are tuning in, like how this works. We love to hear from you. So everything that we talk about on here, you know, obviously make your opinions known in the chat, and we will definitely go back and forth with you. So we'll go ahead and get started with our first topic, which is coming from the NBA, the GM survey. Now, every year, the GMs get a survey of like 50 questions or something like that. They give their opinions on how they feel like the season will play out and everything like that. So I'm gonna go over that really quickly. Kind of get. I was not gonna go over all 50, but I think the ones that kind of stick out to me, and we're gonna get Brett's kind of thoughts. I'll give my quick thoughts on it as well. Hey Pat, what's going on? Facts. I ain't been so numb since ever watching this team. Fellow Patriots fan. Look, Pat, we're in this together. It's a year that we're gonna have to kind of just sit back, watch it, just no expectations. So, but like I said, we will talk about them here in a little bit. But yeah, so Brett, wanted to get your thoughts on it. I had it pulled up. Hold on. I know some of these GMs are definitely going to be biased. They're going to be wild with some of their answers. So here we go. Where shall we start? So we got, hold on, it's loading in. There we go. So the first one, which team will win the 2025 NBA Finals? So according to the GMs, they have the Celtics at 83% to repeat. They have the Thunder at 13%, and the Mavericks are 3%. Last year, they had the Celtics and Nuggets tied at 33% as favorites. So that's your top three that they are predicting to win the NBA Finals. Is there a team in that three that shocks you that's either in there or that isn't there?
Not really. The Celtics make all the sense in the world. Thunder are my pick to win it this year,
Okay.
and the Mavericks, it's fine. I think there are better teams than the Dallas Mavericks this year, but they've already shown if they get hot at the right time, they can do it. So I don't hate it, but I do think that there are better teams than the Dallas Mavericks. So that one kind of caught me off guard, but at the same time, it doesn't surprise me since they literally just made it last year.
Okay. I mean, I know a lot of people are high on the Thunder. I guess when I first saw it, that was a little surprising that they have the second best odds. But like I said, they're a young team. They've been definitely getting better. It's probably more of a shout out to SGA who was in the MVP conversation last season. I feel like a lot of people feel like he'll be back in that conversation again this year. I mean, NBA is a superstar driven league, so I mean, I guess I'm glad that they put somebody kind of new and fresh to the scene. And the Mavericks at 3%. I know a lot of people are going crazy over the Clay edition. I don't know if I see the Mavs making it back, but we'll see. Um, I mean, they also had like conference rankings. So they had the Celtics for the Eastern Conference 97% to finish first. Cleveland actually got the other 3% to finish first. Interesting. The Knicks 43% for second. The Sixers 50%, so they feel like the Sixers will finish second. And then obviously whoever between the Knicks and so the Knicks probably favorite to finish third. Cleveland's the favorite to finish fourth. Actually, no, they're not. The Bucks are favorite to finish fourth. Out west, they have Thunder as 80% for the first. Denver, Dallas, and Phoenix each 7%. So they haven't completely jumped off the Phoenix train yet, even after what we saw last season. Hey, Pavel is going on. Appreciate you tuning in. It's opening night of the NHL season. So appreciate you stopping on in. I did see a little bit of the first game on like ESPN. It was like the Seattle Kraken. And yeah, I think my Bruins are playing now, but I'll check that out after the show. Okay. Who will win Kia MVP? SGA is the favorite at 40%. You got Luka at 30%. Then tied for third, Joel Embiid, Jokic, and Tatum, each at 7%. Last year, Jokic was the favorite at 43%. So they think this is the year SGA gets his. What do you think?
It feels like it. It feels like this is the year for either SGA or Luka.
True.
Like I know my pick was SGA after watching him last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I can see it. I don't actually have any problems with any of that.
Okay.
But yeah, I do think it's going to be either Luka or Shea. That just makes too much sense. I know we like guys like Jokic is going to have another phenomenal year, but I think they're just tired of giving him MVPs at this point. So
right, that's clearly like he'll always be kind of in the conversation, but yes, to actually give him another one, yeah, I think they've kind of passed on that one. All right, so hold on. All right, so next up we got. Actually, I'll just say real quickly. I agree. I think with the MVP, you kind of look at the previous season and get a good idea where votes and a lot of the attention will go for the following seasons. Obviously, Luka makes it to the finals; he's going to be there. And SGA was one of the hottest names last year. I mean, maybe Anthony Edwards could have been a little higher because he got a lot of attention last year, but he was kind of in the also receiving vote category with Giannis, Jaylen Brown. Then you had Anthony Edwards, so he's kind of there, but I mean, I don't have a problem with the guys they have listed either.
I think Anthony Edwards is still maybe like 2 years out from actually being a serious MVP contender. He's going to hit there.
Mm-hmm.
He's still got some strides to make as a player, especially as a playmaker in general.
Yeah,
I think he can, and I think he's on a good track to be in that conversation. But I just don't think that this is going to be the year for Anthony Edwards MVP talks to really ramp up.
Right. I can see that. I was saying like with the heat he had in the playoffs, but yeah, over the 5 that I named, I wouldn't put him above any of them. Next, if you were starting a franchise today and could sign any player in the NBA, who would it be?
Victor Wembanyama?
Not shockingly, is Victor Wembanyama, 77%. He didn't get all 100. You have SGA and Jokic tied at second, each getting 10%. And then Luka got 3%. Last year, Jokic was the leader at 33%. I don't think you have any issues with that. I don't either.
Nope. Exactly what I would do. So
I mean, it's hard to look past a 7-foot plus guy who can handle the ball, shoot from the outside, rim protect. Like, I mean, we're not crazy here. Which player forces opposing coaches to make the most adjustments? Who do you think leads that one?
See, this one's tough. Most adjustments? Really feel like if he's playing healthy, the answer just might be. I'm gonna guess Embiid.
Embiid was tied for 4th with Giannis.
Okay.
It's actually Luka. 33% voted for Luka, 30% Steph Curry, 23% Jokic. And then Giannis and Embiid both got 7%. Last year, Steph Curry had 40%. It's an interesting one. Let's see. What's another good one on here? Player most likely to have a breakout season. According to GMs, maybe this goes towards the Oklahoma City, being up there for NBA champs. Jalen Williams, 13%. And then a long list of other younger players: Evan Mobley, John Morant, Victor Wembanyama, each got 10%. Then Paolo Banchero, Cade Cunningham, and Brandon Miller each got 7%.
Ja? That dude broke out like 3 years ago. He's breaking out again?
I guess because he's been kind of out of sight for a couple of years, I
Like,
guess they feel like he's going to remind people of the player he was.
But that isn't
I
like a
don't know.
breakout. That's just reminding people how good you are. That isn't breaking out.
I mean, a few GMs probably, copped out on that answer there.
Yeah, no, they definitely did that. I disagree with that one because we already know how good Ja is. Like, he's not breaking out. Nobody's going to be shocked if Ja comes out and is an uber athletic 25 a game scorer with, great passing. Like, I already saw it.
Exactly. Hey, Grizzlies fans would love to see the young improving star John Morant break out next season.
Yeah.
They'd love to see that. Actually, this season, since we're already in. I guess a couple more, and then we'll kind of move on. Let's see. Oh, I mean, they have position groups. The best point guard in the NBA, according to the GMs, Luka Doncic at 37%.
Yep.
SGA 30, Curry 23, Jalen Brunson 10%. I mean, those are always can make arguments for one or the other. I'm not mad that they put Luka number one. I can't hate on them for that one.
No, I think that's the right answer. You said they have Brunson at 4?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I think Brunson can almost might make a legitimate argument. This might sound crazy to say, but due to age and everything, I think Brunson probably leapfrogs the step this year as a better point guard for this year. I'm not saying all that to be clear, but I do think there's a very real chance this upcoming season that Brunson's just a better point guard than Steph.
I think that's fair. I mean, Steph is definitely getting up there. Best shooting guard in the NBA, Anthony Edwards, voted by 33%. Devin Booker, 23%. I mean, SGA got 20%. Steph Curry got 10%, and Luka got 7%.
Is it like? See, I disagree with this one. I disagree pretty hard with this one. I like Anthony Edwards, but I think Devin Booker's a more complete player than him. I think they're actually closer than you'd think. I think Devin Booker's a very good defender, just like Anthony Edwards, but I think the big difference is Anthony Edwards is more athletic. He draws more fouls, except Devin Booker is leagues ahead of him as a passer, and he's a better scorer at all 3 levels. I think right now, it is close, but I do think that Devin Booker is better than Anthony Edwards in the year 2024.
Okay. I mean, I can see that. I think Anthony Edwards might be the more exciting player because he, obviously gets the rim and everything like that, and that's more for Sports Center and everything like that. I can agree Booker's probably the better just basketball player. Interesting. Also receiving votes, Jaylen Brown and Derek White. Okay.
So random.
I was kind of surprised. I mean, not the Jaylen Brown part, but that Derek White's getting that much love. Somebody appreciates what Derek White can do. The best small forward, once again, is Jason Tatum with the same percentage as last season, 47%. Tied for second, you got Luka, Kevin Durant, and LeBron. Each got 17%. And then Jaylen Brown came in fifth with 3%.
I need these guys to pick a position because is Luka a point guard, a shooting guard, a small forward? I swear if he shows up on the power forward and center list, I
guess he's the most dynamic talent in the league.
What is Luka? He can't be every position.
I don't necessarily get that, but hey, there's a GM out there that maybe looks at his body type. He's not the quickest, wherever it goes. Yeah, he's a small forward. Maybe the whole Larry Bird comparisons. He's like Larry Bird was kind of a small forward. I'm putting Luke as a small forward. Sure. Best power forward. This one's pretty straightforward. It's Giannis with 77%, Durant 7%. And then others receiving votes, you had AD, Draymond Green, Sabonis, Tatum, Wembyama. That's it. Last year, Giannis was overwhelmingly the best power forward at 97%.
Yeah,
The argument there.
it's funny because Giannis is almost, because he's been hurt these last two postseasons. It's almost like people are starting to underrate Giannis and just forget how good he is at times.
That's actually kind of fair. I can agree with that. I mean, like I've always said, if you get in the playoffs with Giannis, there's very few players I doubt their teams when he's on the court and he's healthy. So, I mean, we'll see what they look like this year. You know, they were an aging roster last year. They're still kind of an aging roster, but you know, there's going to be a lot of pressure on he and Dame to obviously rise above that and get them to where they need to get to. Best center in the NBA, 87%, Jokic, 10% Embiid, 3% Victor.
Okay, that's no, I don't hate it. So
okay, I'll go for two more, and then because like I said, it's like 50 on here. Maybe I'll save some of these for next week. Most improved team of this coming season. Memphis Grizzlies, 67%. The Spurs, 13%. And then the Sixers, 7%.
I do like the Grizzlies. I love the selection of Zach Edey.
Mm-hmm.
I think just in general, just from having a healthy job, Devin Bane took leaps and bounds improvement in the playmaking department last year. Yeah, I think the Grizzlies are just the number one right answer here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's not every team that's going to be, you know, adding a guy with Ja's dynamic play back into the fold. And they were a team that a couple of years ago were seen as the next kind of Western Conference team to, you know, to be up there and kind of do what the Thunder are now. The Thunder are kind of the position that Memphis was in not too long ago. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they made that leap back up to the top of the West at all. And who will win Rookie of the Year? I think this one might be a little interesting. Reed Shepherd, 50% of the vote. Zach Edey, 30%. Stephon Castle, 13%.
Oh, yeah. No, Reed Shepherd was my pick to win Rookie of the Year this year, too. I said if they, because I think there's a real chance of him starting on the bench, and if he sits on the bench long enough and qualifies for Sixth Man of the Year, I said he very well could win Rookie of the Year and Sixth Man of the Year. That kid is going to be good. But obviously, they already have Van Fleet, Jalen Green. They already have some, you know, guards to throw out there. So we'll see how they really balance this whole thing. Dylan Brooks. So it'll be interesting to see how the Rockets balance these minutes.
All right. I mean, I feel like from what I saw, like even the summer league, like Reed Shepherd looks like he could have a very good season. I think Houston's a team got a lot of attention last year. I think they'll have the same attention this year. That can only help Reed Shepherd in terms of, you know, being Rookie of the Year. So I'm not mad at that at all. I mean, also receiving votes, they had Ron Holland from Detroit and Alex Sarr, Washington. I mean, give Washington some hope, I guess. You know, gotta watch somebody. Trajan chiming in. What's going on, Trajan? Dame's having a comeback season. No Giannis on Christmas. This dude is out for blood. That is true. The Bucks do not play on Christmas this year. We'll see. What's going on, Jory? Appreciate you tuning in. And then Trajan back with Zach Edey is not winning Rookie of the Year. Dude can't shoot. Wasn't as good as what he was made out to be. If he doesn't progress, won't do much.
I think Zach Edey won't be asked to do much, and that's going to be why he doesn't win Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to be fantastic for the role that the Memphis Grizzlies ask him to do. And they're going to ask him to do a lot. Hey, can you do what Steven Adams did? Just set hard screens, play defense, and collect rebounds? That's not going to win you Rookie of the Year, but I think when it comes to when we're looking back on this year as the most impactful rookies, I think you're going to have an argument for Zach Edey being one of the most impactful rookies in this class. But honestly, that's exactly why I also don't think he might win Rookie of the Year, because his numbers aren't going to jump off the charts this year. I highly doubt.
Yeah, I would be shocked if he was. Yeah, but I mean, what maybe works in his favor is if, according to the GMs, the Grizzlies make a big leap, that might bring attention to Zach Edey, and if he is like a defensive presence, and maybe there's a few other rookies that don't necessarily separate themselves, but if Edey's just really good at one side of the court, maybe. But I agree. Usually, Rookie of the Year goes to like a dynamic scorer or something like that, and I don't think Edey's going to be that. He'll definitely get some votes, but yeah, I doubt he wins it.
I don't think they'll ask him to guard on the perimeter. They'll try to protect him as much as they can from it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I saw enough of that in college. Don't want to see him out on the perimeter.
Yeah, no. Overall, he's going to be you're going to be able to attack him from the perimeter, whether it's from DHOs, from him sagging off in the paint, or just other bigs. But guys like Steven Adams, once again, I'll use him as an example. He couldn't guard the perimeter either, but he was also just such a great piece for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have Jaren Jackson as your full-time center who can guard the perimeter, your rebounding is absolutely cooked. So they need Edey, if anything, even just for the rebounding out there. So they're going to have to figure out how to work around his flaws, but I think they actually just need him. Because Jackson as your full-time center, we saw how much of a disaster that was.
Right. I mean, I've always felt Jackson was more of a 4. I don't think he necessarily likes the night in, night out physicality of playing the 5. So Edey definitely allows him to play the 4, be on the perimeter, because if Edey is on the court with him, you're going to want Edey around the rim, which will give Jackson more of a reason to stick out on the perimeter and try to make plays out there. Trajan says he's old school, good. Nowadays, I just don't see his game in the league. I could be wrong, though. I mean, I think what Brett and I are kind of saying, like, the way that his skill set is, they're going to have to kind of coach around it to put him in the best situations. So it's whether or not the coaching can do that to him. Because I agree with you, Trajan. Like, when I saw him in college, I had questions about him as an NBA player. I didn't think he had, like, the best feet or anything, especially with some of the bigs that are out there. But, I mean, a lot of teams have a guy, if it's not the 5, it might be the 4, who's not much of a perimeter guy. You kind of just stick Zach on him and allow Jackson to run around against whoever's out there. And if you have to switch, if that player gets into the interior, then you kind of do that. So they have to get creative defensively. They do have stuff on coaches, so I do want to go a couple of those because I don't want to leave the coaches out of this. Best head coach in the NBA. Surprisingly, it's not Joe Mazzulla, but whatever. Eric Spoelstra gets 69% of the vote. Mark Dagnall from the Thunder gets 17%. Steve Kerr, 7%.
Yeah, Spo really does deserve the best coach of the NBA title. Like, the work he does every year with that Heat team, who have no business, if you look at that roster, you look at it and you go, this ain't a playoff team. Like, the names and everything, when you look at the talent they have, half the time you look and go, this team's old, they're unathletic. This is a lottery team. This ain't no playoff team. But every year, even with injuries to guys like Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero missing time, doesn't matter. Spo brings the best out of his players, and they always find a way to compete, win games, and even if they get blown out in the first round or what, it doesn't matter. They're always sneaking into the playoffs or even the play-in picture. So him getting so much out of so little half the time is just absolutely incredible to watch.
I mean, look, there's not much I can say good about Heat culture. I can't, be crazy and say that Spoelstra isn't a good coach. I think he definitely is. I agree with you. With the talent that's there, he seems to get the most out of it. I got to give him credit for that. I was a little bit joking about the Joe Mazzulla part. I feel like his time's coming for this survey. Like, he's going to show people this year. He wasn't just a one trick pony. He's just as good as he was last year. The last one, because this one is an interesting one. Which active player will make the best head coach someday? 30%, Chris Paul. 20%, Garrett Temple. 13%, Mike Conley. And then 7% for TJ McConnell and Fred Van Vliet.
That is so fair, actually, because it's always like the role players that make the good coaches. Like, you can't really name many good superstar like players that transition to be a good head coach, like Larry Bird. Like, I think Bill Russell won a title transitioning to a head coach, but he was also a player, and when he didn't play, he wasn't that great of a head coach. Like, it's really the role players with insanely high basketball IQs, like Drew Holiday. Rajon Rondo would be a great head coach if he decided that. So overall,
isn't Rondo an assistant somewhere now?
Huh? Yeah,
Isn't Rondo an assistant
he's helping out on the coaching staff for Milwaukee.
Okay.
But yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that so much, and I love it. I'd love to see, honestly, and even Garrett Temple. Garrett Temple would be great. I'd love to see it.
Okay. Now, for the Drew Holiday part, there was also receiving votes Harrison Barnes, Bradley Beal, Jalen Brunson, Drew Holiday, Al Horford, probably my pick because it's Al Horford's world. We're just living in it. Tyus Jones and Kyle Lowry got votes.
Bradley Beal is hilarious.
That one stood out to me. I would not have thought about Bradley Beal.
I thought they nailed it with these selections, just high IQ guys. And then there's Bradley Beal. I'm like, what? Like, I listened to what you were saying in your interview today. You don't have me fooled, Beal.
I just saw another good one. Okay, this was absolutely the last one. Which team is going to be the most fun to watch? 37% Indiana Pacers, 27% the Thunder, 10% the Nuggets, 10% the Warriors, 7% Celtics. Last year, the Nuggets were the most fun to watch, according to the GMs.
See, I think the answer here is actually probably just, and I think the Pacers are a good answer, but I think the answer here is really just the Thunder. And honestly, because, like, I had so much fun watching them just yesterday in preseason. They're just doing some, like, sicko-level stuff that really shouldn't be done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm watching Isaiah Hartenstein run handoff actions with Chet Holmgren. I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. Like, the addition of Hartenstein has unlocked so many, like, different things that they can do due to how amazing of a passer he is. I think you're going to see some, like, insanely creative stuff from the Thunder this year, and it is going to be a ton of fun. Also, shout out to Houston Rockets. I don't think that they'll be good necessarily, like, great. Like, they might, I think they could sneak in a playoff game, but I think their on-court play is going to be a lot of fun. And honestly, the Pistons and Cade Cunningham with, like, actual NBA spacing around them, I think that could be a lot of fun this year too.
I see why. I guess why the Pacers are on there. The Pacers do play a bit of an up and down style. Halliburton's a really good passer. I guess I can see that. I agree. I probably would have gone to the Thunder first. And I've said that the Hartenstein loss for the Knicks would be bigger than people think. I get that they got Cat, but his ability to just high motor, crashing the boards, I think that could be the most dangerous addition to the Thunder. Because imagine, he gets an offensive board, you're getting a second chance three from SGA, most likely uncovered as the defense kind of sags into the paint. They could be pretty dangerous in the West this year. But so that's all from the GM survey. Like I said, might look at some other ones next week because there are even more categories on here. And so far, from the ones that we did, I feel like the GMs weren't too outlandish with some of their answers. I mean, obviously, the
Dude,
Bradley Beal as a coach might be the one that we laugh at, but who knows? Maybe.
there was one like so I read one of them because I knew they came out today, and I literally read one, and I got so mad at it I didn't read anything.
Which one was that one?
Best foreign player.
I think I saw that one too.
Yeah, and this has made me so mad, and this is why I made that comment about Giannis being underrated now.
Mm-hmm.
Because one was Nikola Jokic. Okay, don't have a beef with that. Number 2, Luka Doncic. Okay, I think I can make a good argument that Giannis is better than Luka Doncic, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually have a problem with that. Number 3, Victor Wembanyama. Like, excuse me? Like, it's his second year in the league. He's not going to be better than Giannis next year. And to be clear, I'm very high on him. When I did my predictive guess on where these players are going to rank,
Mm-hmm.
I had Wemby as the 7th best player in the NBA this year. I think he cracks the top 10. He's that good this year. The issue is Giannis is in the top 3. There's a gap still. So I think Wemby's a great player. To put him ahead of Giannis is absurd. And I think you can argue that Giannis is over Luka, but I also don't really mind if you put him behind Luka. I personally like his two-way play, more. The fact that anybody's above Al Horford too is a travesty. But no, but yeah, the fact that Giannis wasn't on that list, it was so egregious, and it made me so mad I didn't even look at the rest of these. So these are all the surprise to me.
All right. Well, I mean, I do agree. I feel like Giannis should be in the top 3, especially when they voted him as the best power forward in the league, and then to leave him off of your votes for best international player. I mean, it doesn't really make sense, but I mean, we know that a lot of people are really high on Victor. We, know a lot of people were astounded by what he could do last year. I think because that the anticipation of what he'll do this year, now knowing more about the league and the style of play, is intriguing as well. But yeah, I probably wouldn't have left Giannis off for him. But I guess I understand where you're coming from on that one. So yeah, so like I said, we'll probably look at some more of these next week. But let's get into some NFL news. Oh, Robert Saleh, goes over to London thinking he has a good shot to give the Vikings their first loss. Aaron Rodgers 3 picks later. They lose 23-17. Come to find out today, he gets fired by the Jets. Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator, will take over in the meantime. I've seen a lot of people discuss this. There's people who are trying to figure out how much Aaron Rodgers was involved. Woody Johnson said that he spoke to Aaron Rodgers, but not about Robert Saleh. Then I've seen some more where apparently Robert Saleh was getting ready to fire Nathaniel Hackett. Aaron Rodgers stepped in to kind of save Nathaniel Hackett, which then leads to Robert Saleh getting fired. So a lot of stuff circling around the Jets. I mean, you as a Packers fan probably understand when you get Aaron Rodgers, you get drama. So the Jets have drama. What was your first thoughts when you heard Robert Saleh got fired? Remember, the Jets have never done this. Woody Johnson doesn't fire coaches midseason, but he used it. He used his first opportunity to let go of Robert Saleh.
The right answer is you fired the wrong guy. Robert Saleh had the right idea. As a Packers fan, I know how uncreative and uninspiring Nathaniel Hackett's offense is.
Mm-hmm.
Think about this. That play that Aaron Rodgers threw that interception on to end the game. The game's on the line. 3rd and 10. If anything, you get at least 5. You can go for it on 4th and 5, so you don't have to go for it all. Nathaniel Hackett's great play calling. Let's run 4 verts.
Mm-hmm.
The man calls such an uninspiring and uncreative offense. And it's brutal. Hey, guess what? We're going to run 4 verts. Hey, we're going to run like 4 verts, except like Mike Williams is going to run a 5-yard hitch route. It is so uninspiring. And it's an offense where it worked in Green Bay when you have guys like Devontae Adams because Aaron Rodgers had phenomenal chemistry with Devontae Adams and Alan Lazard, who was there also. But when you try to run this same offense where it's just really uncreative and uninspiring with guys you don't have chemistry with, like that interception, Devontae would have known to look over his back shoulder because that's where Rodgers likes to go. Mike Williams didn't know. Williams thought that ball was going to go over his head and like to the boundary. He thought he's going to have to jump for it. And therein lies the issue. The issue wasn't with Robert Saleh. The issue is there's a chemistry issue because maybe instead of going to Egypt, you could have been in training camp and building this chemistry with the receivers. So overall, it's just Robert Saleh's a scapegoat. And I'm not saying the man's perfect. Of course he had his flaws. But I feel like he's just the scapegoat for a lot of things that really weren't necessarily all on him. Like, he's the head coach, so it all comes back on him.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a bigger problem right now is just these receivers and Rodgers have no chemistry at all, and Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I guess if the second part is true that, Saleh was prepared to fire Hackett, and maybe that's where Woody Johnson talked to Rodgers, and Rodgers was like, no, Hackett's doing well. I wonder what his excuse would be for the offense. But then, yeah, this looks terrible. Because I agree with you. Robert Saleh was not a perfect coach. I had issues with the way he kind of was like in love with Rodgers when he first got there. But for a defensive-minded guy, he probably figured like this is the perfect quarterback to get. He's been around. He's been to a Super Bowl. This is a team that has a lot of talent. So he probably figured that he would coach his defense up. Rodgers, along with Hackett, his buddy, would get the offense figured out. Hasn't happened. I mean, obviously last season he didn't have much of Aaron Rodgers' services, but this is a coach who's dealt with like Zach Wilson and Tim Boyle and a whole set of quarterbacks that nobody could necessarily succeed with. So I think to do it midseason, when you're 2-3, you're only a game behind the Bills in the division, seems a little bit premature. I mean, I guess we'll find out after the year who they have stepping in. I've seen like Belichick or Vrabel could be leaders. Do you see Rodgers getting along with Belichick or Vrabel? I don't see that at all. So I don't understand why those two would want to go there. Like, if you're telling me Rodgers is gone, then yeah, those two may take the position because they're like defensive coaches with a good defense to work off of. But if Rodgers is there next year, there's no reason for the Jets to go try to get Belichick or Vrabel.
Well,
because they'll be in the same position.
I'll say, Belichick more than I would, and Aaron Rodgers, carefree, kind of just does whatever he wants until, the season starts. Then he pretty much treats like the first 5 weeks as extended preseason. Like, Bill Belichick would really enjoy putting up with, Aaron Rodgers randomly, dipping off to Egypt and training camp and, all of his, stunts like that.
Not at all. I mean, Belichick kind of later on was a little bit more lenient. Like we saw, Gronk was allowed to kind of be himself. I feel like Brady did a little bit more later on in his career as well. But Belichick's also about like execution and limiting turnovers. So the 3 turnover game would have just made Belichick go nuts. But we also know that Belichick likes to treat everybody kind of the same in terms of when you're in the film room, if you messed up, he doesn't care if you're Tom Brady or a gunner on special teams. He'll call you out. I doubt Rodgers would welcome that with open arms. So, look, the Jets put themselves in this position. We will see who decides to take this job after the fact. For some reason, a name that was kind of bouncing around in my head when I first saw it was gone. I was thinking that they're probably going to go offensive-minded. Maybe like a Ben Johnson, who was kind of courted last go-around, decided to stay in Detroit. Maybe he's a guy. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers obviously is going to have to make a decision on who the next coach will be. That's a given, but we'll see. As a Patriots fan, keep the dysfunction in New York. I'm loving it. Speaking of New England, Drake May. Now, before the season, I said week 7 against the Jags. I was a week off. Okay. He's getting his first start this weekend against the Texans. The Texans have a pretty good pass defense, actually a pretty good defense just in general. So maybe not the most optimal first start. But we kind of understand with Jacoby Brissett, they win week 1 against Cincinnati, and seemingly each subsequent week it just got worse and worse. You had the overtime loss against the Seahawks in week 2, then follow that up with the blowout loss to the Jets and the Niners. And then this past weekend, you lose to the Dolphins with Tyler Huntley and an actual offense that was scoring less than the Patriots were. So Drake May starts his first 5 games: the Texans, the Jags in London, Jets, Titans, and the Bears. Looking at those first 5 starts, like, what do you think Drake May can do? Do you think anything will change in New England just by changing the quarterback? Do you think it's the right decision to pull the trigger now with Drake May?
I would have waited a week. Like, I think he might die behind the Texans game. I think he gives you a better arm, like a more live arm than Jacoby Brissett, so that you can open up the passing attack a little more. I think you're running a real risk, though, because with the Texans, I don't think it really matters. You're going to have to run the ball a lot. I don't know how much you're dropping back, because you don't want to destroy his confidence in the first game, and you open him up to the same defense that completely decimated, Caleb Williams in week 2. I don't think this is a great start game. I feel like you go, okay, have his first start be against the Jags in London, or even just wait another week. Okay, face the Jets at home. I think either one of those would have been better, but versus that Texans pass rush, it's going to be a tough game. But I guess we're going to see real quick what he's made out of. But I think overall, I get why you're trying this. I get what you're doing. And it'll be interesting. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on the Patriots this week.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely talk about, well, maybe one of us might pick that game for our pick segment later on. I agree with you. I do think they're going to run the ball. They have the 8th rated rushing offense. Stevenson was benched to start the game against the Dolphins, but came in and played a lot better. He didn't fumble. It was his first game of the season where he didn't fumble. I think Gibson is a good change of pace for him. So I expect to see a lot more of that. Maybe some screen passes to get Drake May more involved. But I think this is a move that has the wide receivers in mind, because it was every game you saw analysts saying, like, Demario Douglas is getting open, didn't get the ball. Polk is getting open, didn't get the ball. And I feel like they're probably hoping Drake May being a little bit more mobile than Jacoby Brissett. Maybe he can move around the pocket a little bit more, get out on the edges and make some plays like that, or just scramble and make a few plays. So, yeah, the Texans are going to pose an interesting challenge for him to start with. But, I mean, you're at the point where I guess you just rip the Band-Aid off. You throw him out there and hope he doesn't experience the same stuff that Caleb Williams did. That's the
I'll
hope.
say, if you're a fan of explosive offenses, don't tune into the Patriots. Like you said, this week is going to be like a straight diet of run and screen passes and little short. Like, there's going to be an occasional shot, and that'll be interesting. But, yeah, I think you're going to see, like, the most, like, basic, like, 2000s offense this week from the Patriots.
Yeah.
And I think they'll wait. They'll give it a week, go up against the Jags next week. Then they'll start opening up the playbook a little more. It might be against, like, the Titans when you really see them start to open it up, closer to all the way for them.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting, but I really don't expect a lot of passing attempts for them to open up the playbook very far against the Texans in general.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's be very conservative, and I feel like for Patriots fans, have to be okay with that. Uh, this was not a season that they're supposed to win a lot. So now from here on, it's Drake May's development. Can he create connections with some of these young wide receivers who he probably threw to in practice, but now to see on the actual NFL field, can he make some magic like Jaden Daniels, or maybe it takes a few weeks like Caleb Williams, who had a pretty decent week this past week, but it started off really rough for him. Just throw him out there and let's see. Might make him better off next season anyway. All right. Week 5 observations. So, like I said, week 5's in the books. The season's moving along way too fast for me. So, what was your biggest takeaway from week 5?
Oh well, say mine really was because I said it's fun. It's tough because there are a lot of takeaways I could take away from this week, but I'm starting to worry about Rashawn Gary, man. Just has not been it. I think that's kind of one of my bigger ones on this Packers defense. Just this defensive line in general. And we won this week and that's great. But this defensive line just has to step it up for Green Bay. We are 32nd in the NFL in pass rush win rate, which is not great. And I know we're at top of the league in turnovers. That's because, Xavier McKinney's an absolute demon right now. And what's really just, boosting our sack numbers is that 8-sack game against the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
But our D-line just is not winning. We're not getting off blocks, which we're making it work right now. But if we get into some important games, coming up, we got games against the Bears. We got games against the Lions. These are games we're going to want to win. And if we want to win we can't get bullied at the line of scrimmage. So I'm really hoping that this Packers D-line just really steps it up when it comes to getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks.
Okay. I think the biggest takeaway for me, which kind of goes somewhat into like the mainstream media, the Joe Burrow conversations that are being had on like a weekly basis are just wild to me. Because yes, they lost to Baltimore in overtime after Evan McPherson and the holder couldn't get their stuff together. He missed the field goal. The Ravens marched down basically off of one play, the Derrick Henry off tackle run to the left, get into field goal range, and they win the game. It seems like the very next day, I'm seeing stuff about, stop making excuses for Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow is overrated, and why aren't we talking more about how he is whatever, how his performance. I'm like, the guy's got 12 touchdowns, like 2 interceptions. He's throwing for a ton of yards. Cincinnati's issues are not Joe Burrow. It's obviously on their defense. If their defense could hold anybody to under 30, the Bengals would have a much better record right now. And if I have to sit here and worry about an NFL defense and whether or not they can slow people down to under 30 points, I'm not going to point at the quarterback and say he's the issue. So I think the Baltimore game showed once again, Baltimore's supposed to have a good defense. We already know that their secondary is trash, but now that, he's kind of warmed up to the season, Jamar Chase the past couple of weeks has really come on. T. Higgins has come on. Even though they're 1-4, I would not write off the Cincinnati Bengals just yet. I think that was probably my biggest takeaway from watching the games this week. If you want to shovel dirt on them, go right ahead. I'm not there yet with them.
I'm close just because that defense is so bad. Like, if I scored 38 and we still lose the game, that is clearly not on the quarterback. If my offense puts up 38 points, there's probably, a different issue than the offense if they're able to drop that much. Like, after, they got off to that rough start, week 1, and they got off to a slow start, but they've been picking it up. But the issue is the defense hasn't.
Yeah.
So I can see the avenue for them to get better simply by just being more disciplined and just playing better defense in general. But it remains to be seen if they're actually capable of it.
I definitely think that is fair. What's working in their favor, even though they're 1-4, you're looking at the Giants next, the Browns, the Eagles, the Raiders before you see the Ravens again. So they could very well be like 4-4. I mean 5-4. Sorry, by the time they face the Ravens again.
But don't write off the Giants. The Seahawks learned that the hard way. That's probably why Dylan's ducking the show this week. No,
I mean,
the
no,
block field
that's definitely
for a touchdown. That was the most insane ending we could have written up for that game.
yeah. I mean, obviously you can't necessarily guarantee wins in the NFL, but if, like I said, if you're a Bengals fan, you look at that competition, you're like, there are winnable games there. You know, Giants offense doesn't necessarily blow you away. The Browns offense is a mess right now. The Eagles offense has their own issues, and the Raiders offense has a lot of issues. So those are games that you may be able to win, I don't know, like 35-28 or something, because obviously this defense will make even struggling offenses look good. I just think the opportunity is there for them to kind of right the ship, get back to 500 at least, and then try to move on from there. Because even that sitting at 1-4, I think I'm like a game or two out of a playoff spot. Because like I said, still very early in the season, so we'll see. Like if they lose to the Giants, you're panicking. If they find a way to allow the Browns to beat them and put up points, now you're just like code red, like over with the season.
Honestly, I don't even care if they beat the Giants or not. If they lose to the Browns, it's over.
Yes.
Like, Deshaun Watson is done. He is cooked. He's not a good quarterback. He is probably like the 40th best quarterback in the NFL right now. And he's probably the third best quarterback on the Cleveland Browns right now. Like, he is that bad. I don't even know if they have a third quarterback on the Cleveland Browns right now, but quite frankly, I'd probably start the guy from the practice squad next week before Deshaun Watson. But hey, you can't get rid of him for another 2 years still. So
yeah, that's unfortunate that they've put themselves in that situation. I mean, that's probably another observation that can have before we move on to the picks and everything like that. The Deshaun Watson situation, the more you hear Deshaun Watson talk, Stefanski talk, and just the team, I feel like Stefanski would love to move on from Watson. I think Watson would love a reason to be moved on from. But the ownership, I feel like, is going to continue to push him out there because they know that contract's attached to him, and they're hoping for 1 week it just clicks in him. I like you, don't think that's happening. He looks like somebody who's disinterested in football, and when he goes to the post game interview and he's talking about, I'll do whatever the coaches decide to do. That's a guy who's not trying to fight to be a starter in this league. So if I'm Stefanski, I get with Watson. I tell him, like, look, hamstring's a little tight. We'll give you a couple of weeks. Let's start Jameis Winston, and just be done with it. If you start winning with Jameis Winston, maybe the hamstring injury becomes a calf problem. It's just taking a little bit longer for him to come back than normal. I think for the both parties here, Deshaun Watson and Stefanski, like, come up to some solution, some phony injury or something, just to get him away from it for some weeks. That might be the best thing for the team. Because if he continues to play this way, some of these other guys are going to be like, what am I out here going 100% for if the quarterback doesn't even care?
Say the first ever hamstring injury to keep somebody out until 2027.
Why not? I mean, look, the Pistons did that with Cade Cunningham's shin injury. That happened like the first week of the season. That guy was gone forever.
No, that's fair. Yeah, you just, and the worst part, like I said, the worst part is he's so disinterested, but ownership is not going to let this man sit. It's
Nope.
because next year, and next year is the most hilarious thing because guess what? You're paying him $72 million. You're paying him $72 million the year after that. And
Yeah.
you can't cut him unless you want like an 100 and I forgot what the number is, but it's some wild like $150 million dead cap hit or something. It is the most insane thing.
Yeah.
So you're not cutting, you're not getting rid of him.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see if they can find a way to work around him with, ownership's approval.
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, the Russ Wilson last year was like the 96 million dead cap, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's embarrassing." You come up with 150.
Oh,
That's,
I'm sorry. I lied. You ready for these dead cap numbers?
okay.
Cut them this year, $200 million.
Oh.
Next year, $172 million. 2026, $99 million. And the way they structured the contract, there is a void year actually after that. So they're going to pay him to not even be on the team for $26 million.
All right. I mean, hey, they could have kept Baker Mayfield, but no, this is the guy they wanted. They got to live with it. Maybe the hope is, Winston wins a couple of games, sparks something that's just hiding deep inside when the competitive edge comes out. I doubt it because he knows that money's coming his way. Why should he try if he isn't that serious about football anymore?
No.
I mean, he'll hold a clipboard for that kind of money.
Yeah, that's fair. Most expensive secretary of all time.
Yep. Oh, Cleveland, you'll figure it out somehow. All right, so we talked about last week. We had the one winless team in Jacksonville, the two undefeated teams. Well, Jacksonville is no longer winless. They got their win against the Colts in a crazy game where Joe Flacco had a crazy performance. So he's out there scrambling for first downs, throwing deep balls. But even with that, the Jags got their first win. The Vikings beat the Jets. The Saints lost to Kansas City. So now Kansas City and the Vikings are 5-0. Both teams are on a bye this week. That worked out that way. So they will be back in action in a couple of weeks to see who's the last remaining unbeaten. So after that, they both have tough tests. The Vikings have to play the Lions in Minnesota, and the Chiefs have to go out on the road to the Niners to face them. But we all know Andy Reid is really good after the bye. So, I mean, who do you think would have less of a chance after their bye to stay undefeated? Who is the tougher matchup?
See, I'm looking at the bottom half of this. The tougher matchup probably just belongs to the Kansas City Chiefs with the 49ers and Lions. I think that's actually pretty even in terms of difficult, but I think the Raiders are a better team than the Rams.
Okay.
So not so long the Rams ever. And then the Bucks and the Colts. I like the Bucks better than the Colts. So I think the Chiefs have a tougher schedule coming up here. However, I do think they're going to find a way to stay undefeated longer than the Vikings. They've been playing they try the most unserious things and they keep winning. Like, they're just experimenting with so many different things. It's all clicking. It's all working. They're winning football games, and I think that continues. I think they'll eventually obviously have to lose. They're not going 17-0, but I think the Chiefs will be the last undefeated team.
Okay. I mean, it's hard not to bet against the, reigning champs. They're seemingly getting Kelsey more involved. I mean, we saw last night how crazy everybody's going off for the lateral and everything like that. Xavier Worthy didn't really do much in terms of production, but they used him in the running game a little bit. He scored a rushing touchdown. I think they'll get very creative. I mean, look, they put life into Juju. Juju had like 130 yards receiving last night. I don't know the last time he did that, but he looks like a better wide receiver than he did when he was in New England. It always seemed like he had some knee injury he was dealing with. Funny how that works. You go to a winning team, and now you're putting up numbers. But
Jose, all of a sudden the knee's fine.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I kind of agree with you. I feel like Kansas City probably sticks it out a little bit longer. Because we know there's going to be like that terrible Sam Darnold game that's going to come where, a lot of people will start to wonder the first part of the season just a fluke and now he's going to fall off. That has to be on its way. And maybe it is against the Lions. Who knows?
Can you tell me what seed the Vikings got the last time they started out 5-0 in the playoffs?
I'm going to guess they probably missed the playoffs.
Yep, that was a trick question. They completely missed the playoffs when they started out 5-0 last time. So the Vikings have shown that they can start out hot, but historically speaking, they will falter down the stretch. So we'll see if they're able to, I don't expect them to keep up this pace, but they got to keep up something close to it if they want to continue to win football games like they are. Because I still think that there are a lot of teams. There are teams that are more talented than this one. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to maintain at least most of this pace and just how strong they finish the rest of the way.
Yeah, and obviously Flores' defense will help with that if they can continue to perform as they have so far with him and his exotic coverages and everything like that. We'll see. As teams get more tape on it, maybe they figure something out. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see what these two teams who can last the longest. All right. So looking at last week, our picks, I had to come up with some symbol for pushes because you got the +3 at the Colts, which is a push. So I guess it's just the face with this, no smile, no frown. That's our symbol now. So Brett, you went 2-1. Dylan went 3-2. I went 3-2. I will say, Commanders have become like my new favorite team to pick. I keep winning with them. We'll see if that continues. So right now our records are pretty close. You're 11-9-2. Dylan's 13-14-1. I'm 14-13-1. Which obviously, is there anything we need to say about these picks? The Bengals one hurt me. +2.5, they lose on that field goal. I could have had a 4-1 week, but I guess I'm supposed to blame Joe Burrow like everybody else. Steelers game, that's one you got wrong. I got that one wrong as well. It sure seemed like they were going to pull that one off against the Cowboys, and then the offense just completely tanked, and Dak had the late touchdown throw. You got the Bucs one wrong, but even that was a game that was very much in the balance for most of it. They gave up the walk-off touchdown in that one as well. So yeah, we're all jumbled up once again as we lead into our picks. Starting with Thursday Night Football, Niners travel to Seattle to face Dylan's Seahawks. The Seahawks are a 3.5-point dog at home. So, Brett, how do you see this one playing out? As I write these down again.
Oh, this one's a tough one to pick. Just because I 49ers, I think, are the better team still. But divisional games are so weird. I'm going to pick the Seahawks to cover this one. Like I said, they're tough, and the 49ers have been reeling a bit. They haven't looked like their dominant selves like they had the past 2 years. So I'm going to go with the 49ers still find a way to pull it out, but I do think that the Seahawks cover, and this is like a one-score game. Comes down to a game-winning field goal.
Okay. So you got Seahawks. Because where I'm torn here, I feel like the half will come into play. I could very well see this be a field goal game either way. So obviously, if the Seahawks won by a field goal, I would go with them. But I think if the Niners win, it's probably a field goal as well. I think they just brought in a new kicker because Jake Moody, I think, is hurt. They brought in, I think it's Mike Wright, I want to say. That could play a factor into this. Kicking game is a little off. That changes your play calling and decision making on fourth downs. So I think I'm kind of going to agree with you, and I'm going to take the Seahawks in the 3.5 because I feel like it's going to be a very close game. Mike McDonald with his defense, I'm sure he'll have some game plan for a Niners team. Like you said, is kind of banged up and just not playing as well as a lot of people would have thought, at least this point into the season. They could very easily turn it around, but as both teams are playing right now, you got to figure that the Seahawks will bounce back after that Giants loss the way it happened and want to play much better against a division foe in the Niners. Sunday night, we get Joe Burrow and the Bengals against those pesky Giants from New York. The Giants are also a 3.5 point underdog at home. I mean, the Giants are coming off a win, as we just said, against the Seahawks, and the Bengals had the tough loss to the Ravens. So, who do you see covering in this one?
I got the Bengals. I think they'll just end up covering this one. I think the Giants have one of the best front sevens in the NFL, and I think that'll, bother the Bengals for a bit, but I think they figure it out, resort to more of a quick passing game. I think you're going to see a lot of why Malik Neighbors is special this game, but I do think that the Bengals end up winning this one by, I'm going to say a 10-point game. I think it's within a touchdown, and then the Bengals pull away with a late field goal. So give me the Bengals winning and covering.
I agree. I got the Bengals as well. I mean, we were just talking about the Bengals a little earlier, and I'm sitting here talking about the next 4 or 5 opponents are games they could not easily, but that they could win. Because because I picked the Bengals as a playoff team, I feel like they need to turn it on now. I feel like there's going to be another good day from probably Chase and Higgins as well. Can they get what can they get out of the running game necessarily? May decide this one, but I don't know if I can completely buy into the Giants, even though they have a couple of wins on the year. So I will take the Bengals as well and the 3.5. So now for Monday night, I mean, look, Robert Saleh gets moved out. Get your first game with your interim coach, Monday Night Football against your divisional foe in the Bills. And with all the craziness of the Jets season, if they were to win Monday night, they would tie the Bills atop the division, and at this point would have the tiebreaker and would actually be leading the division. They are also a 2.5 point, well, not also, but they're a 2.5 point underdog. So all 3 primetime games have home underdogs. So how do you see this one playing out? Do you see, I guess, the Jets rallying around the new voice as head coach and figuring out their own offensive issues, or do the Bills bounce back from maybe the oddest way to lose a game from last week, where it was a tie game, they're backed up on their own end zone, for some reason just started throwing like Hail Marys that were all incomplete, had to punt, pretty good field position for the Texans who kick a field goal, and that's how they lose. Sean McDermott has taken full responsibility for that, but how do you see this one playing out? Two teams that could use a win badly.
See, I feel like the answer to this is probably everybody's gonna say Bills win. I'm gonna go with my gut here. Jets win and they cover. I think the Jets rally around their new voice in the locker room. And honestly, I feel like Jets winning here, like on paper, it just doesn't make sense at all right now with how dysfunctional they've been. But with the way the season has been going, where it's just been kind of wild to start this first 5 weeks, this honestly seems like the most rational thing to happen, where the Jets somehow miraculously beat the Bills. So, you know what? Partially based on vibes of how the season's going, give me the Jets covering.
Okay. That did cross my mind because we've seen teams who make changes the very next game. There's some level that they move up in terms of play. We saw the Bryce Young stuff. Andy Dalton goes right in there. They win right away. So I did think about that with the Jets, but I'm gonna go with the Bills here to cover the 2.5 because I'm not a firm believer in necessarily just changing Robert Saleh out fixes the issues that Rodgers has with these wide receivers and their just level of play offensively. I know the Bills have their own issues, but I feel like a Monday night, you're going to get a good Josh Allen. And I just feel like he finds a way to get it done for Buffalo, and they bounce back with the win in this one. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets did it, but I'll take the Bills in the 2.5. All right. So looking at the rest of week 6. So once again, if you are new to the show, once again, appreciate you tuning in. You know, jump in the comments and let us know you're here. So we picked the primetime games. So now Brett and myself will take our kind of favorite for the week and our underdog. So one of the teams that's not a favorite that we think will cover. And once again, teams on a bye, you got the Chiefs, Rams, Dolphins, Vikings. So if you're looking to pick the Dolphins, you can't do it. So looking at some of these other games, you got Bears as a 2.5-point favorite over the Jags. Brett's Packers are a 5-point favorite over the Cardinals. Jory, if you're still in here. The Colts are a 1-point favorite going into Tennessee. The Texans are a touchdown favorite going into New England. Bucks are a 3.5-point favorite going into New Orleans. So I guess we'll have to see what Derek Carr situation looks like there. The Browns head into Philly, where the Eagles are a 9-point favorite, which with all the struggles of the Eagles, that number tells you something about what Vegas thinks about what's going on in Cleveland, that they're a 9-point underdog. The Commanders and Ravens could be the most intriguing game of the week. Ravens are a 6.5-point favorite. The Chargers are 3-point favorites going into Denver. The Steelers are 3-point favorites going into Vegas. Lions 3.5-point favorites going into Dallas. And the Falcons are a 6-point favorite heading into Carolina. So who is your favorite of the week?
I hate picking a division rival as a favorite, but for my favorite, give me the Lions over the Cowboys. I think this is a nightmare matchup for Dallas. Lions are just going to run the ball down their throats and really build off that into the play action. Jared Goff's specialty there, so give me the Lions as a favorite.
Okay. And I guess your underdog.
This one is a lot tougher. Underdog. You know what? Underdog, give me the Commanders covering versus the Ravens. I'm sorry if I stole yours there, but
it's all right.
The Commanders are rolling. Jaden Daniels. I keep saying McDaniels. Jaden Daniels is playing great. I think that the Ravens win this game, but I think Jaden Daniels and the offense are able to keep it within that 6.5.
Okay. I think that's a fair choice right there. I probably would have gone there myself. As I mentioned earlier, I've been picking the Commanders for like 3 straight weeks, and they've hit on each one. All right, so for me, the favorite I will go with, because there's some intriguing ones here. The Falcons -6 is looking pretty good, but it's also trusting the Falcons on the road after the win that they just had. I could see a fall off there, but I'll trust my gut on that one. I'll take the Falcons in the 6. And for my underdog, I'm tempted to go for the first time all year with my Patriots, but it's Drake May's first time. I don't think I want to put that pressure on him. Let's see, where else can we go? You know what? I'll take the. I'll go Broncos +3 with the Chargers. I'm surprised with what the Broncos are doing. I think if anything else, like the Chargers aren't necessarily a team that's going to blow somebody out. I think with their with Pat Surtain and those guys in the secondary, I feel like they'll be able to do stuff against the Chargers passing game. And I feel like that's a game that could be low scoring and very close. So I'll take the Broncos +3. Wouldn't be surprised if that's the one that ends up as a push, but um, yeah, we'll see. Like I said, it's an interesting week because some of these lines were tempting. I'm not gonna lie. The Colts -1 with the Titans was a game that I probably wouldn't like go ahead and bet. But I don't know if I can trust the Colts, even with what Joe Flacco's doing. We saw a Jags team put up a lot of points against their defense. That Eagles -9, I feel like that's going to sucker a lot of people because of what you think about the Browns. But you got to remember, the Eagles' offense has been very erratic. Like that's a game you can see the Eagles keeping the Browns in late into the fourth, with Eagles fans like screaming at their TV, like, "Why can't this offense just get it together?" That could be like a backdoor cover for the Browns waiting to happen. I mean, I guess was there any game that maybe you were close to picking but stayed away from?
Um, I was tempted to pick the Bears as a lock against the Jags too, because I really do not. I think the wheels have fallen off for Jacksonville over there. I actually think there's a real chance if they get blown out in London. I think Peterson could be the next one fired after Sunday. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like firing Saleh just kind of popped that lid open, and I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a couple more coaches go. Like, especially I think if the Jags lose on Sunday, I think Doug Peterson's gone next.
Yeah. Remember, I mean, like I said, Salah had happened to him in London. The Jags have back-to-back London games because they have the Bears, then the Patriots next week. I mean, I guess if they lose either one, Peterson could get left over in London as well. I mean, how do you feel about your Packers against the Cardinals? Packers 5-point favorite.
I think it'll be an interesting one. I think that we'll win, but I don't necessarily think we cover. The Packers have issues with running quarterbacks at times, just kind of keeping the pass rush, mobilized. Well, granted, really everybody's been mobilizing our pass rush lately, but except the Titans. Sorry, Jory, don't hurt me. No, but I think Kyler Murray will use his legs to kind of slow down our pass rush, but overall, I love what our offense is doing. Jordan Love had that awful pick six, but outside of that pick six, he looked amazing against the Rams. He really built off that amazing fourth quarter he had against the Vikings where he went for 201, 3 touchdowns and a pick in just, that one quarter against Minnesota. I think overall, this Packers offense is heating up, and this is with Jordan Love. I think it was a stat. It was like right now, 11% of Jordan Love's passes of catchable balls have been dropped. So this is with an offense that just cannot, at times just can't catch right now. So the scary part is this offense has been cooking, and I think we're only going to get better as the year rolls on and the chemistry continues to build. So I think we have a great game, but I also am not going to disrespect the Cardinals, and I think they have a great offensive game too.
I mean, look, you mentioned the running quarterback. We saw Kyler Murray with a 50-yard touchdown scramble. So that's definitely something you have to look out for. And I'll just say, for me, with the Patriots as a 7-point home dog, I'm just excited to see the kind of energy in the building when Drake May makes that first run out onto the field as the starting quarterback. He's obviously got to manage those emotions because he's probably going to be amped up. And against, like you said, a Texans defense that can get pressure on the quarterback, and they have some pretty good corners out there. Just wanting to kind of play within himself and just make the plays that are there. Get it to Pop Douglas and some of those guys, and turn around and hand off to Stevenson. I fully expect the Texans to win the game, but I just feel like the Patriots will have some hope as to the future now that Drake May is kind of on the job. But that is all we have for you. So let me get rid of this right here. Here we go. There. Yeah. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. I mean, before we get out of here, Brett, is there anything you want to add in? Go ahead.
Yeah, you can check me out in 14 minutes on the Meaty Boys podcast. So I'm not done yet. You're going to be seeing a little more of me tonight.
That's right. So if you are a wrestling fan, make sure you check out Brett for Meaty Boys, like you said. Just coming off of Bad Blood, which I've seen like highlights from it, and I'm like, I might have to just go back and watch that one. Because once again, Triple H is doing his thing. I'm sure you'll talk about the new championship belt
Oh, yeah.
displayed, which it looked huge to me, but I feel like the crowd didn't necessarily like that. So I will definitely be tuning in to see your thoughts on that as well. So once again, if you're a wrestling fan, check them out there. For me, you can find me is back here on Integrity Sports Thursday, where Sideline will be streamed on here, as well as Sports Banter, which is a newer show. So if you guys haven't checked out that one, definitely tune in for that one as well. We just have some fun on there, just I don't know, kind of just chilling and just talking about whatever. Definitely check us out there. So with that, for myself, for Brett Carter 3, and Dylan, who, like I said, should be back next week. This has been another edition of the On the Ball podcast. Appreciate all of you. Enjoy the rest of your night. Go ahead and check out the, baseball playoffs or WNBA, which I think I took a quick peek at. My Sun are in trouble. Crap. And the Bruins are getting blown out. So what a way to start the hockey season. It's rough right now. But we'll see you next week right here on Integrity Sports Network. Every Tuesday, 7 o'clock. We're a little bit later this week, but normally at 7. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your night. We're out of here. Bye.